Today we're here with James Dixon, and as I was just telling him, I wouldn't even know where to start and how to introduce him. There's so many different avenues I could go down. He's such an inspiration. He is an advocate for amputees because of the stuff that he himself has been through, which I want to ask you all about if you're okay talking about
absolutely.
that. He is someone that represents God really well. I can tell within the first 5 minutes of talking to him that he's a light to so many people. He is a motivational speaker in so many places, has this enormous following that he's built up. And yet you're so humble.
No, thank
You're
you.
very, very humble. Do you mind, this is so off course, but do you mind sharing with me a story that but in a little bit more detail, you just shared a story about someone pulling a gun on you, and a little bit of background. You were saying you wanted to go into inner cities and help people, and then something happened that changed that. Do you mind sharing that story?
Yeah, well, in the middle of the night, you get the fourth meal calling you. It's time to go eat,
Yeah.
And so I worked second shift, always have worked in a factory. The good thing is it allowed me to provide for my family. Bad thing is it took me away from my family.
Yeah.
Because when the kids are home, I'm at work.
Yeah.
So on my way home, I decided I'm going to grab some McDonald's. And as I'm in the drive-through, there are kids who are double parked in front of me. And so after a while of waiting, I press my horn. It's to get them to go because the line is waiting. But that's what they were waiting on. You see, one of the kids was being initiated into a gang, and the only way to get in, he's got to do some violence to someone. It's a random act of violence, and so what they were doing, they were staging a situation where someone would disrespect him, and now he has a reason. Blowing the horn is a sign of disrespect. And so he gets out, and I really meant no disrespect. I meant it in the fact of like, go ahead, you can move ahead, there's nothing around you, but I can't go around because you blocked it. And so the kid gets out, pulls a gun out, puts it in my face. And the only reason I'm here today is because I recognize his facial structure and some of his relatives. But in the middle of me telling him, I was like, hey, man, do you know who I am? I wasn't about like, do you know who I am like I'm some powerhouse. I wanted him to know my name.
Yeah.
Because if he took my life, he would be taken away. Hope from many other people. He would take me away from my kids. I wanted him to know my name. Because killing a random person may be easy, but killing James, someone whose name they now know, now that would be different. And so the kid didn't take my life only because of that. And it made me realize, man, I got to change something. Because in the urban city, in the inner city, we don't have families, we don't have fathers. And if you don't have fathers, and you say, well, who do we blame for that? Well, I was born to Elmer and Eloise Dixon. But regardless of who I was born to, whether my father was there or not, at this stage, I am a child of my own actions and deeds. And in order for me to change
hold on,
lives,
say that again.
Yeah.
That's a controversial thing to say. Say that again.
So I was born to them.
Yeah.
Right? And even though my father wouldn't accept me, I can't use that the rest of my life. At some point, I have to say that I am a child of my own actions and deeds. I've got to be more, and I can't blame him because I'm not responsible for what happened in my past. I'm responsible for what I do with my past.
Whoa. That gave me chills.
Oh, well, yeah. So that is, I want to change things. I want to be that example, but I want to bring back examples.
Yeah. So do you feel like fatherhood is important then? Like being a present father?
I used to think that as long as I provided, I did enough. If I went to work and I worked hard and I put in extra hours and I brought home a check, I love you because these lights are on. I love you because meals are here. I love you because you got Jordans. I love you because I bought stuff you wanted. You gave me a Christmas list. I fulfilled it all. And then I learned that wasn't it. And the biggest moment, aha, for me, when I decided to quit working a job and chase after my purpose, instead of me going to work, I got a chance to go watch my sons. James Jr. was playing soccer, and Jeremiah, my youngest, was playing tennis. And I showed up at practice. And when my son saw me, he broke down. And so when he hugs me and he's crying all hard, I realized that my presence was more valuable than those presents. And I missed so much. So yeah, not only my father, who was I'm paying back child support, not an income, but an emotional investment. And so I'm making sure that now that I have this freedom of time, I'm giving it to them. I owe. And so I need to get other fathers on the same page. I need to get other men to realize that it's not enough. I can't break generational curses if I continue to handcuff my kids emotionally. If they got stuff, or you think that as long as I pay the bills, I'm the man of the house, that doesn't do it.
That is a big thing to say. And I totally agree. That's amazing. I came from having a father who was the absolute best, just the best father that you could ever have. And what it did for me, despite all the other turmoil that we had growing up, which was a lot, having that rock, life-changing. That's what kept me on the straight and narrow. That right there. Man, that says so much about you to not have that, but then to later on be that. So you're saying it is possible to go be that without having that foundation.
Listen, this is going to be emotional because I don't want it to be, but we're Feminism Memorial Day, and I'm thinking about so many different things. One of the things is, in this topic, my grandmother reared me. And her question to me every day was, what am I raising? And so there's a response that I was trained to repeat. She said, I'm raising to be someone's husband and someone's father. And that's it. I'm not raising a kid in here who's disabled. I'm not raising a kid in here with excuses. I'm raising you to be somebody's father and somebody's husband. That was what
Sounds amazing.
And so she invested everything in me. And so I pay that debt every day. So when you find me, you were like, James, you're humble. I know that I'm a debtor. I didn't get to be known. I didn't become a speaker because I was just gifted. I learned to be a speaker because my grandmother couldn't read or write, and she would have me read to her, and she was like, read the Bible to me. And so she would cook and clean and stuff, and I'd read the Bible, and she was like, if you're going to read, you read it like you mean it. And so I'd go back.
Amazing grandmother.
And so I would read it. And then she said, let me tell you what you read to me. And she would explain it. And so when she passed, I struggled. But the investment she put into me, the deposits. So I'm making a withdrawal. So when I go to speak and people are like, man, I felt what you were saying. The reason why you feel it is because I am giving all I got. I don't leave the stage asking, how was that? Or did you enjoy that? I don't ask those questions because I go in and I'm going there to serve. Yeah. Before I walk out, I've already prayed. I've already gotten there an hour before you guys got there. I've already prayed over every chair that you'll sit in. I've already asked for breakthroughs. I've already requested that you never saw happen. So when I get there and I give my all, I leave there. I then have to go be refilled myself, because I give so much. And so if you get up and you're like, so there are 4 things to your destiny. The first one is, you must be like Steph Curry. Repeat this. And I was like, that isn't motivation. And if it is, it's all exterior. And there's a reason why those kids can't ride a bike when they leave a seminar.
Forget in a week.
That's right. Yeah. But if I inspire you, if I trigger you, if I use the emotions to be a spark plug to the will, and I then give you something that will last, I can change a whole generation. So watching to see the way people responded has been amazing, but it was something I knew would happen because my grandmother always told me it would. From the time I was first, when she took me in at 3 months, until she passed 20 plus years ago, and I still miss her every day.
I'm sure you do. Can I say something? And I hope this isn't offensive. Like, you, judging by society's standards and by what society tells us, there's a lot of things you could have used as excuses to be. However,
I could have been on disability. It was available to me, especially since I never walked on my own power until I was 11. And so I could have used disability. I could have hidden behind it, but my grandmother didn't allow me to. She always told me I wasn't crippled, I had kryptonite. Baby, you're Superman and you can overcome it. And if you do that, if you overcome something, you become something. And as a result of it, I live by that mantra. So I never saw myself as disabled.
No, and you told me right before we started filming that Superman is really what to you?
Yeah, Superman is a euphemism for Christ. It is the fact that even the cartoon character was 33, Christ was 33 at the time of the crucifixion, that the red that covers his whole backside is like the blood that flows from Emmanuel's vein. It covers everything. That the royalty that he is, that he only hears from his father, that he was born in a manger, but others born in the barn. All of those connections have to do with it. But it's a reminder that Superman is real in this way, is that he has empowered me to be a symbol of hope for him. And so I don't need to be flawless. I just need to be authentic. And as a result of that, I see results come in my life, and I can't take ownership for it.
That is so beautiful. Like I hope whoever is listening feels like what I feel right now, just talking with you, because I know you believe that and I know you live it. And it's such a beautiful thing about you. You had mentioned something else earlier when we were talking about Martin Luther King. And of course, it is a controversial topic right now, but everything apparently is. So it's like every topic.
You're going to offend somebody with everything.
No matter what
if
I say.
If I say I'm left-handed, or if I say how many genders there are, somebody's going to be offended.
Someone's going to be offended. So why don't we just hit every
if you're going to be emotion vested, might as well trigger them all, right? Because at least it'll pull something out of people. Martin Luther King, I grew up, man, and he was with a photo of him and the family on the wall. That's how much we revered him.
Yeah.
And we all love messages like I Have a Dream.
Yeah.
But he also has messages like A Knock at Midnight and all these other things. And to have seen him study and hear his messages, one of his anthems, one of his themes was always that he would want his children and everyone to be judged by the content of the character, not the color of your skin, right? Because that is all external, but who you are, that's what resonates, that's what matters. And yet to be in politics now, you hear people simply say, because you're black, you're monolithic in thought, you can't have your own opinions. It should be black and brown people against white people. And man, that is so divisive.
Yeah.
We live in a culture where if we separate ourselves by color, you have divided and weakened people by the most. That is the worst thing you can do, is define me by my color. Because you don't even see a person. You just see a race. And that it's not even a race, because there's so many shades of that. You don't know anyone's background. They can have Egyptian. They could come from Africa and have Asante in them, which is a whole tribe from Ghana that never even saw slavery. You have no idea. So to pigeonhole people into being slaves, whether my family came from slavery or not is irrelevant. I grew up from people who were survivors. And because I saw my grandmother thrive in a world without any advantages. And if I saw her do it and raise kids, and then she raised me, I owe that woman. When I would go out and play, she would even say, "What's your last name?" And I would say, "Dixon." And she said, "That's who you represent then. It's not your first, it's the last. It's not just about you." And we live in a culture, I think, that forgets that Martin's message was about character. I Have a Dream was a personal one. But it's now we have to fulfill that dream.
So beautiful. How does someone get to that point of knowing that and believing that? Because there's not a ton of differences between you and I. I mean, we might have different life experiences, but just because your color of your skin is different than mine. I mean, what a shallow, stupid way. And God would not want us to be that way with each other.
Now, listen, I don't care whether you were born with wealth or you were born poor. We all get that equality at the foot of the cross. We're all on equal ground.
Yes.
We're all broken. We all have come from something. And just because people even have a financial advantage doesn't mean that they've had everything. They can still be a void. I've met people who are generationally wealthy and still looking for purpose. Yeah. I've seen people on the verge of suicide, and I've even been with people to walk them through that, not taking their lives. And you say, why would a person who's young, you got money, you got a fiance, you've won things, why would they take their lives? It's because they don't have a sense of purpose. And the purpose comes from, what was I born for? But I've been there before, where I wondered why. Why was I born with a disability? Why did my father say there's no way I could make a crippled child? Why would he deny me? Take a blood test. I said, I just can't. I can't imagine. I can't be your dad because I can't imagine having a crippled son. And to watch my dad love on other kids and not me. But then God, to reward me by giving me a grandmother who invested everything in me. And she was mindful. She would tell me, nah, don't waste my lifeline. I didn't have to take you in, and I did. Don't waste it. And so, there are moments that went through teenage moments like every kid who went and spent his time with his friends and didn't want to listen to grandma or hang out on the porch with her. But if I could go back, because the things she invested in me, I live on, I still feel. People hear me speak, and man, I'm only echoing things that were invested in me. And so I go out and I share what's in the heart, to the heart, and people say, man, I wish I met your grandmother. Well, when you hear me talk, you have, because those things come from her. Forgive me, I know we were just talking, but there's no way I can talk about my origin, my story, where I'm going, without reminding you for the fact that I stand on her shoulders.
One of my favorite things about what you just said is I mean, obviously I have 6 little kids and I love children. That's kind of my thing. One of my purposes in life is taking care of children who feel abandoned, who feel hurt, whenever I see a child, I see it as an opportunity to love someone that they might remember or feel God's love for them.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of like this precious little child not feeling loved or feeling rejected by their father, just like that is so painful to even hear. But immediately you went right to, but my grandmother,
That's
but
right.
my grandmother, but my grandmother. And not that there would be anything wrong with you expanding on, the situation with your dad rejecting, but your positivity and your
Oh man,
thankfulness is just so evident.
There's always a trade. The biggest trade was I went from like, why me? God, why'd you choose me there's no one in my family disabled but me. I sit on the porch. I was nicknamed the cripple kid on the porch. I was teased with that. I fought against that. I was rejected for that. And so I always wondered if I had had both legs, God, please, let me. Why? And now I look over my life and I realize, man, I was chosen for this. This was the biggest blessing I could have. This was a gift. And when I realized it was a gift, I am now able to talk people through suicide. I'm able to speak to people. I've been able to be at hospitals. And forgive me, I'm hijacking this conversation.
No,
I want to share
hear
with you.
from you.
There was, I get calls from VA hospitals once I started opening up about my amputation. And I got a call, and there was a guy named Francis Bell. And he was a veteran, Army veteran. And he was diabetic and he was going to lose his leg. Didn't want to, was afraid to. And they put him on the phone with me. And I get on the phone, I talk with him. And I said, I'm going to come see you. And I said, you're going to have to do the amputation. And he's like, okay, coach. For that veteran to trust me. And he said, if you made it, I can do it. So I could be an example to him. Well, he loses the leg and he's excited. He loses weight. He's getting in shape. It just so happened they said that his heart wasn't going to be strong enough to keep going through dialysis. And as a result of it, they weren't going to give him his prosthetic. And he said, Coach, my only wish is I want to die whole. And I said, what do you mean? He said, I want my leg. And so the insurance company wouldn't give it to him because he wasn't viable. They don't see it as a long-term investment. There's no return, even though he served their country, because with his heart condition.
That's so messed up.
So I leveraged the relationships I have with a prosthetic company. And I asked them, I said, would you please do me a favor? I will make advertisements for you. I'll be your spokesman, but I need you to do something for me. Mr. Bell's not going to make it. They sent him home through hospice. He's with his family, and his last wish is to get his leg. If you'll provide that for him, it would mean everything to me. And so, within 12 hours, they had a leg and we put it on him. On my Instagram, you can even see he was a Harley rider. So I went to a store and I was telling them what I needed, a decal to go on the leg. And they got that for me. It says $5 decal. But I put that on and put that Harley on it. And you'll see his last words where he says, thank you. And his family celebrates as he transitions. He died whole. You see, had I not been able to come off of mute and stop asking God why, I'm not there for that man to fulfill that wish and to see his family see him made whole. And the impact of that had, the echo that has to others. That's why it is important for us to maybe not ask the question why, but how. How do I use this? Your background. People say your success, and there was a comment you made about, you said, my husband's a genius. The greatest decision he made was you.
Thank you.
You see, people give us credit for the fact that someone has academia or a certain skill set, but without the completion, without the connection, it wouldn't have fulfilled. He wouldn't have been able to do this. Not anyone else could have stepped in this role, get those children, invest that with your skill set, and then be here giving.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So
this
nice
is a
to see.
calling. You
Oh,
see,
it's
because
such
we
a
could
calling.
simply sit here and we could keep this stuff to ourselves, or we could have opinions, we can have conversations. You could have made a post, but to be able to invest in and say, what are you going to hope to gain? I only hope to gain well done at the end of my life from God.
That is, yes, that. And I saw this clip earlier today. This is so funny. You just said this, where someone was saying, all I care about, I don't care. I mean, it's like a bonus if your kids can be successful and, all these other things, but I want them to have good character. I want them to be good people who love others, who love God, who every day try to do what's right. And especially right now, there's, it's selfie, it's self-centered, it's self-care. Okay, self-care is great.
Self-esteem and all
Yes,
this.
everything
Yeah.
is self. And I'm not saying there's things wrong with focusing on self-care and things like that, but there's so much focus on it that we're not focusing on other people. And it's like that story that you did that he could die whole, that's such a beautiful concept.
Man, listen, I tell you what, let's do the whole self thing. This is the last sad story, but it is
I
a
want to hear
powerful
everything you
story
got.
because it ends up great. There's a kid named Marcus, and you can see a story on my Instagram. So Marcus, I get a phone call out of Fort Wayne, Indiana, and they were like, Super, and his nickname for him. They were like, we need you here at the hospital. There's a kid named Marcus. Marcus aged out of foster care. You see, when you turn 18,
So sad.
they put you out. There's no more money coming for you or anything else. The foster family, it's not beneficial. So last check, you go out. And so he aged out before he graduated high school, so they put him out. Well, the kid goes out and he's already diabetic. He's anemic and all these things. Well, because he's now got poor nutrition and all those things, doesn't take care for himself, he gets a scratch. The scratch then gets infected, gangrene and all that stuff, and he's going to go septic. And so he's in the hospital. He's about 20, but he looks like maybe 14, 15 because he's so emaciated. He's just small.
Yeah.
And they were like, he won't give up his leg. And if he doesn't, he'll die. And so I said, I'll come. And I was scheduled to speak somewhere, but I'd always had this philosophy. I will choose the opportunity to serve one over going to take a stage. It doesn't matter. And so
love that.
I switch up and I go. I get there and I get to meet Marcus, and he won't look at me. And this is during the mask wearing segment of life. And so I have to wear the mask, I have all this stuff, but they let me in there with him. And I was like, Marcus, why won't you give up the leg? And he said, why should I? Nobody cares about me anyway. No mom, no dad, no siblings. Why should I? He was asking me, why should I keep living? Why would I fight for a life and I don't have one? Why should I care? And I was like, man, I'll be your family. And I was like, I am your family. And I said, I don't want to live in a world that doesn't have you in it when you should be here. And I said, so I'm asking you to do it for me. And he said, will you be here if I do it? I said, I promise you, you go into surgery, when you come out, I'll be here. And he's like, you promise. And you can watch the kid cry and he's getting me to swear he won't leave me. And I said, I'll be here. And so he goes in, they do the amputation. If they don't, he dies. They do the amputation, and they take off more than what he was anticipating. And so I had to be there and encourage him up. But I was there, which meant the world to him. Then they said, well, there's not enough of a limb left. It doesn't make sense for us to give him a leg. And I was like, we promised him we'd help him. I have video of him walking today. And the reason why he's walking is because I advocated, I fought for him. But I fought for him because my grandmother fought for me. And people don't have an advocate. That's why I don't have time to be getting caught up in arguments over philosophies and stuff that doesn't make sense, about genders. And I'm like, man, people, they need to see it. They need some authentic Christian beliefs that are invested back in the world. And I won't apologize for being a believer. I won't apologize for having a calling. I won't apologize for feeling chosen to do this. And there are people who will come behind me that will even do more, but I have to do my part now. Yeah. And I don't know how many days God has left for me, but I will give my all until it's the end. I don't have any regret except for the fact that I waited so long.
Oh my goodness, I love that about you. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing is, like, before the cameras are rolling, you're the exact same way. Mm-hmm. You are the exact same way. Like, we need more people like that. I love your example. Do you mind sharing what happened with your leg?
No.
And I don't know if we can, John, can we see on the camera that he had his leg amputated?
So I'm going to demonstrate it there to you, and you can see there's Superman. John, are you able to grab that? And so you'll see there's Superman, but you also see Philippians 4:13. That verse says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthened me. Now let me tell you the story I went through. When I was born, they thought that they saw one leg was longer than the other, but they thought if they put a stent on me, they could fix it. And so now I'm 3 months of age, and they decided to try a surgery on me. And they took a part of my rib cage, and they put it where tibia is, and they caused it the curve. And then they decided to keep doing surgeries. And I had one every 6 months. So I was either recovering in a hospital, going through surgery again. And so I was always in a wheelchair. I was always in stitches. I was seen as being too vulnerable. So I never got to feel what grass felt like under my feet. I never got to play with the other kids because they had to be careful with me. So I was known as the crippled kid on the porch. Everyone knew me as that. They would wave to me, but no one would interact with me. So my best friend was my grandmother. And I would sit there. And there happened to be a neighbor that was across the street. One of the last white guys to live in our community, because everyone was moving out because the community was going down. The factories that had built up that community where I was from were leaving. And so when those jobs were leaving, it went from an average income of like $65,000 and this is in the 80s.
It's a lot back then.
Right? So it goes from that to right today is 18,000, same area. And so it was so dependent on those type of jobs. So when we're celebrating shifting jobs out of the country, it kills communities. Yeah. But there was the guy, people were moving out, and he comes across the street and he says, Miss Kizai, the crippled boy on the porch, what's wrong with him? And she said, baby, they haven't been able to find out. You see, I hadn't been diagnosed with what was wrong with me. All these surgeries were experimental. They were testing stuff, trying stuff. And I had 33 surgeries already. And so all I'd ever known was surgeries. And so he says, I'm a Shriner.
Oh, yeah.
And we're willing to take him on, see if we can help him. But we got to take him from Indiana to Chicago. Wow. And in order to do that, see, my mom and dad hadn't given my grandmother legal custody. She was I was living with her.
Yeah.
And so the two of them had to come together. We go to Chicago. And so it's wild for me. I see my dad now, but he has to come.
How old were you at this point now?
I'm 11.
11 at this point.
And, I was afraid he would never show up because I used to be the kid that would sit on the porch And he said, your dad said he might come by today. And so I'm looking for every red truck that goes by. And then when he wouldn't come, I'd be broken. So now I'm just happy he's here, and I don't want to say anything wrong because I don't want him to leave. So we're in the car, we travel. I remember stopping at Cracker Barrel, we eat. And they said, get whatever you want. I was already happy. I'm with my mom and dad. So we get to the hospital. And I'm so used to going to the hospital, it doesn't bother me. I go in, this is all I've ever known. Every 6 months, I'm in there anyway. It's just a different one. But this one's kind of cool because I'm at the Shriners and they got wheelchair decorating competition. I get to watch that. We go on and they got other kids my age now there and we're interacting. And so they bring me to a room. My mom walks in with my dad and he goes, I got to take off. But I'm going to give you my necklace. He takes the necklace off and gives it to me and has this E for his name, first name. And he's like, if you need me, you just send that to me. I'll come on get you. And I said, okay. And I don't want him to leave because I don't know if I'll see him again. But he gives me this promise. So I have this necklace. My mom comes in and she said, I got to go, baby. You're going to be here for a while, okay? And I said, yes, ma'am. But I'm used to it, so I'm not torn up that I'm losing. My prized possession is I got my father's necklace. If I need him, he said he'll come. So I'm in the hospital and I get put in a room. There's a Great Lakes section. The hospital is what it's the name of it. It's like your dorm. And I have two roommates. And one name's Gilbert. Gilbert's on my left side. Matthew is on my right side. Matt and Gil. Gilbert's 12. He's older than me. But he's paralyzed from the neck down because of Cabrini Green Apartments, the real inner city, the ghetto of ghettos. Someone had thrown him off the balcony and left him in that condition. And so we would be up all night talking, and we had asked if they could put a mirror so we could see each other's face because I couldn't really see him. I turned, but he couldn't turn. And so they put a mirror so we could interact, see each other's faces. And I got Matthew on the side of it. Matthew lives in an incubator. He's very small. He's 8, but he's brilliant. Funny guy. His mom and dad touch him through gloves and stuff. And they always were giving him milk and stuff to him to get his bones stronger and stuff like that. But I saw mom and dad for the first time. And his parents. And I saw his dad every day. Gilbert had never seen that either. And we were just amazed that Matt had a dad. One day Matt goes back for surgery. And when they come back, he's not with them. His parents came and they said that Matt went home. And I was like, he didn't say bye. And they were like, he went to the Lord. And so it was the first time I knew kids die. His parents gave me the teddy bears that sat in there with him. And they gave one to Gilbert. And so we're devastated by this, but there's no one to reckon. No parent on either one has had someone come in to walk us through that. We just had each other. And so we're just kind of quiet. A little while later, we get word Gilbert's mom's coming to see him. So he's all excited. My mom's coming because she hadn't been in there, and I'd probably been there a month. And no one's come to see me either. And so it was a big deal. He was excited. And so they fix his hair up some. They put on regular clothes on him for mom to see him. And they come and they pull the curtain between us closed like it's going to be privacy, but there's a mirror so I can see everything. Anyway, and so I'm looking at me. He's so happy. His mom comes in and he's excited. And he said, Mama, I miss you. And she was like, Gail, listen, I need to talk to you. And he said, yes, Mama. And he's like, I'm going to get better. I'm going to get stronger. And she was like, Gail, I can't do this no more. You see, mama got to live her own life too. This thing here, they tell me you ain't going to walk no how. This is too much work for me. I can't do it. I'm too young. You ain't. And he was like, Mama, please.
Oh,
And she
gosh.
said, I can't do it. And he's like, Mama, have mercy. And that was his last begging words there to her. He's like, Mama, mercy, please. I won't be bad no more, Mama, please. I'll do whatever. And she said, you're making it too hard on me. And she said, these people will take care of you. And she leaves the room and never comes back. And Gilbert starts trying to hold his breath to take his life. He's biting his tongue and all that stuff, and he won't talk. So I'm struggling now that either your parents are going to abandon you or you die. So I'm struggling. My grandmother was been my everyday rock. She had always been there for me, and I haven't heard from her. She can't read or write. She's not coming. She doesn't drive. They had asked me if I wanted to lose my leg, and I said no. And yet when I woke up, it was gone. I was angry, and so I grabbed a pillow when the doctor came in, and I was trying to swing it at him. And so I get in trouble. They handcuff me down, tie me down and stuff. And well, anyway, my mom shows up because there's a disciplinary action with me. I was angry, though, because they took my leg. Even though it didn't serve me well, it was all I ever known. It was all I was attached to. It was all I'd ever been a part of. And now it's gone, and nobody told me. I'd asked the nurse if she would mail my dad's necklace. She said he didn't have even the address. So then I knew he wasn't coming. My mom comes in, and she's angry. But I'm afraid to upset her anymore. I don't want her to leave me. So she comes in. She said, what's this? I heard you were talking back to adults. And I said, I'm sorry. And she was like, you know better than this. I said, yes, ma'am. My mom then says, I better not hear about this again. I said, yes, ma'am. The nurse is there, and she say, Miss Dixon, James is going to get up and he's going to play basketball one day. He's going to do some great things. You know, the amputation maybe, I feel bad to him, but I promise him he's going to be okay. My mom said, don't give him false hope. And I looked at the nurse and I was like, because she'd been telling me I would one day walk, one day run, one day do things. And my mom is like, he's a cripple. He's always been a cripple. That's all he ever is. And so she looks at me and she says, you going to listen to her, you going to listen to me. And I don't want her to leave me. So I said, yes, ma'am. And she said, do you understand you're a cripple? And I went to look back at the nurse. My mom slaps me. And she said, I need you to say it. Say you're a cripple. And so I broke. I'm a cripple. That's all I am. And she said, all right. That's all you ever be. And so I quit trying to do the rehab. I quit talking. I just didn't want to lose her. And she leaves, goes back to Indiana. The nurse is trying to get me to interact and talk again, but I'm not. And she asked me, do I know my grandmother's phone number? And I said, yeah. She calls her. And my grandmother faced her own fears, went to the Greyhound bus station without trusting those people that they would send in the right place, came to the hospital. And when I see her walk through them doors, she said, where's Superman? And she told me I could get up, and it's time. And for her, I did. You see, my mom judged me by my resume. I had never walked. I had never run. And there are a lot of people who are judged by things that in their past. They'll be limited by what they've done, but just because that's what you've done doesn't mean that's all you can ever do. I got up because my grandmother said, it's time. Without her, I don't walk. I don't get the will to live. And so, that's why I pay back this debt. That's why I give. That's why I speak from the heart. That's why I serve. That's why I give. That's why I live the way I do. I was born for this. It took abandonment for this. But I don't blame. And this was the path that had to go down. But now I give a trail for others. Now I get to speak. And so when I talk, it's everyone suffers loss. You don't have to lose a limb, but everyone has a loss of a child or death of someone close to them. Someone has bankruptcy, a divorce. Everyone goes through a loss. It creates a gap in your life. But if that gap is there, God has to fill it. And then if you can trust him, if you can understand that there's a reason why you go through it, you'll give someone else a reason to live. And so that's why I'm here today.
You definitely are fulfilling your purpose, and it's so inspiring to me. I'm like over here so emotional just hearing this stuff, and I just can't even imagine the stuff that you've been through, and to be told that by a parent is just, it blows my mind. If someone were here right now feeling like they're at their absolute rock bottom, that they can't escape whatever mess, even if it's a mess that they've made themselves, what would you say to them?
Oh man, listen, if you ever get to the point where you're at your bottom, that's a platform. And I can promise you this, that at the very bottom, when you feel like you have been abandoned, been lost, you don't have any reason to live, I promise you, man, there's a reserve tank that's got to open up, and it doesn't open up until you go ahead and say, God, fill me again. There's got to be more. And I promise you, in the echoes, when you're isolated and you're alone, sometimes I've learned that God will empty out your backfield so that there's no one there but him. And if you're on your back and you're looking up, you can get up because you can trust him. He's never abandoned us. He moves the negative people out of your way. My mom needed to leave the room so that my grandmother could enter it. And sometimes you'll go through someone leaving your life so that someone better can enter it. Sometimes you'll come in so that someone can be positive. The one thing we can't do is allow negative people to be around us. It is the one disease we can't afford to catch, is negativity. If you're wondering if you can make it, I waited 45 years before I told the world I was an amputee. I was on pause, and I lived with the idea of, what if I'd spoken up sooner? At the end of Schindler's List, there's this scene, right, where he takes off his watch and he says, if I had just given this up, I could have saved 2 more lives. I look at time that way. If I could have only started, but then rather than saying if I only could, I take that reserve and I go from my own personal bottom and I speak from that. Every time I get up to speak, I speak as if this were the last time I get a voice, last time I get to say something. So if you're watching, you're feeling that way. I'm telling you, if it feels like it's the last time, instead of it feeling like it's the last breath, think of it as a new beginning. Whatever's been cut off is so that you can have something else given. It's like a prosthetic. The loss of my leg is the reason why I even have this platform now. But I needed to be broken so that I could become wet clay and be rebuilt. And then I went through stages where I felt I was unseen, unheard. Sometimes in your seedling stage, you'll be covered up with dirt. Dirt can be negative things on your name. Dirt can be negative images you have. But just because you're covered up doesn't mean you're forgotten. You can be being protected. And from that soil, from the bottom, man, you grow up, and no one can take credit for what was created in you in those dark hours. In fact, you become, when you finally break through, you become a pathway for others. The best speakers we have are people who have lived a life that seems less desired. It's not motivational speakers that get up and tell you, here's 7 ways to more effective life. There are not 7 ways. There are millions of paths to it. Your path might be being broken. Your path may be being down. But you can get up again.
That is so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing all this. I feel so inspired and emotional. You are such a light, and I'm just so thankful that you would come here and share that. I really am.
Thank you for having me.